Carlos Sainz seems to be the hottest topic in the upcoming summer period, mostly because the contract with Ferrari that's expiring at the end of this season doesn't seem to be renewed anytime soon. With how Leclerc has been constantly in the centre of attention with the latest talks from Ferrari, it goes without saying that Sainz has dropped a bit in the shadows of the Maranello team. And even though he stated his wish to remain with the team, that might not be the best scenario possible for the smooth operator. So, will Sainz actually go to Audi? And if so, how will this affect the entire situation at Ferrari? Furthermore, does this have the potential to start one of the craziest silly seasons in a long time, with both McLaren drivers and Alonso being the top competitors for the Audi seat as well? Sainz joined Ferrari at the end of the 2020 season, and it was quite remarkable that he was able to outperform Leclerc, who already had 2 seasons of experience with the Maranello team in their first season as teammates. This was something that made us believe that there is quite a place for an intra-team fight between Sainz and Leclerc in the upcoming seasons, and luckily for both of them, they didn't have to wait that long for a car-winning season, as in 2022, Ferrari won 2 of the first 3 races and achieved the first 1-2 win in Bahrain in quite a long time. However, it wasn't Sainz who won those 2 races. As a matter of fact, he only won 1 race for the team in Silverstone, and the head-to-head comparisons were going heavily in Leclerc's favour. What seemed to be a great season for both drivers to showcase their skill set has quickly turned into a reliability-doomed campaign for the Scuderia team, which has quickly prompted talks about a potential switch in their driver lineup. This was denied by both of the drivers, and with the new team principal, Frederic Vasseur, it was already heavily rumoured that Ferrari would enter the upcoming season with an Alpha driver and a designated number 2 compadre, but that didn't turn out to be the truth after all. In 2023, even though Sainz is only 7 points behind Leclerc, that could be written off to the fact that Leclerc didn't finish in 2 races this season, Australia and Bahrain, as he suffered reliability issues in the desert and had to retire the car after being P3 ahead of his teammate. Ferrari currently has 3 podiums to their name, and all of them are courtesy of Charles Leclerc. This itself shows that while Sainz is a very skilled driver and usually makes his own calls, it doesn't mean that the team is respecting that quite often, or to take things further, they're not able to exploit the full potential of his driving skill set. Charles Leclerc is rumoured to be signing a $190 million contract until the end of 2029, which also includes a bonus that would grant him an extra $50 million if he's to remain with the Maranello team until the end of the 2029 campaign. As for Sainz, there are not many talks that he would be the preferred driver with which Ferrari would enter the second season, and while the Spaniard has openly discussed his contractual situation in 2024, he said that there's no way he'll enter the upcoming campaign unless he knows where he's going to drive in 2025. When talking about this matter, Sainz went on to say, "Obviously, I don't want to reveal what my strategies are in terms of contractual negotiations because it's something that I never disclose. But if you've heard me in interviews in the past, I've always said I like going into an F1 season knowing where I'm going to race the year after, because I went through that experience at Renault and I didn't enjoy it at all, the way everything panned out, so that would be my target." Furthermore, Sainz was asked as to whether or not we should expect an answer regarding this question until the end of the 2023 season, one that's slowly but surely shaping up to be a hellbound one for Ferrari, as the smooth operator added, "Not necessarily this year, but before the start of next year or during the start of next year." What goes heavily in favour of the fact that Sainz and Ferrari are not really on the same page is that the Spaniard has constantly criticised the team for the direction in which they're moving, and while that seems like an issue that can be overcome with time, the team principal, Frederic Vasseur, is adamant that the Maranello team, although being miles behind Red Bull in terms of catching up with them anytime soon, is not going to change anything in the foreseeable future. While we haven't seen any comments made from Leclerc on this matter, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's very happy with where Ferrari is going. But if he is to sign the lucrative contract with Ferrari, it goes to show that the Maranello squad has finally understood that in order for you to bring yourself back to winning ways, you'll need to have one alpha male that would lead the team in the Green Valleys. And quite frankly, with 2 DNFs and just 7 points of difference behind your teammate, there is no doubt that Leclerc has a lot more to prove with the SF23, which is a significant downgrade if you compare it with the F175, the challenger from last year. All signs point towards Sainz actually looking for another competitive team in which he would like to prove his skill set. And even though Leclerc publicly said that the tensions between him and Sainz are blown out of proportion by the media just to create more drama, there is no doubt that these two are not getting along as we would have hoped for. That was, however, to be expected, because right now the team is moving towards a slow and painful transition, and the strong shall feast on the weak, and as all things stand, it seems like Leclerc will be the predator and Sainz will be the prey. So is there any chance that we're going to see the smooth operator sign a contract with the newcomer in the sport, Audi, from 2026 onwards? If he calls upon the nepotistic relationship with the German manufacturer, then there is no doubt that Audi would consider him a starter, as we mustn't forget the fact that Carlos Sainz, the father of the Formula 1 driver, races for Audi in Rally Dakar and has a very close and personal relationship with the four-ringed squad. Furthermore, Audi doesn't have any experience in F1 whatsoever, so having a driver that could be able to influence the decisions of the team a lot, thanks to the profound feedback regarding the car's performance, as well as the tactics the team chooses for the race, is definitely something that the team is aiming for, and Sainz would be the perfect candidate for that. However, there is one more veteran that has much more experience winning races and driving for a championship-winning team, and that veteran is currently under contract with Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas. The Finn has 10 wins to his name and 67 podiums, and when talking about his commitment to Audi, he didn't shy away from admitting that the German manufacturer is one of his main priorities once they come on the stage in 2026, as he went on to elaborate. When you're focused on the here and now, you don't want to sometimes think too far ahead, but then if I really think about it and the long-term plan, then it would make sense. And for me, it would be really motivating to be part of it. Let's see, it's still a while away. I'm sure eventually we'll have some discussions, but not yet. In 2026, Sainz will be 31 years old, meaning that he'll be well into his prime to prove that there is still room for him to win a championship outside of Ferrari, a dream that seems very distant for him right now. However, there is one thing that he needs to understand in this entire situation, and that's the fact that Audi is planning on being competitive for the championship 3 years from their entrance in the sport, which would be 2029. At the age of 34, and with a lot of young talents coming up from the academies of all teams involved in the sport, it would be a massive challenge for Sainz, and one that he might not be able to overcome at all. And we mustn't forget the fact that the smooth operator is not the only driver who's being considered by Audi, especially not after Norris and Seidl's close professional relationship was revealed in the media. Yes, Norris and Sainz both worked under Seidl's command, who is now the CEO of Sauber and will be responsible for the drivers' lineup. But if there is one thing that Norris has shown in the past couple of races, it's the fact that he could be racing for wins much closer than Sainz if given the proper car. On the other hand, you have Fernando Alonso, who has been openly discussed by Aluni Bravi, who's the representative of Alfa Romeo, and when talking about the possibility of having the two-time world champion race for them at the age of 45, Aluni went on to elaborate. "I would always sign Fernando, even at 45 years or more. I was able to get to know him well at McLaren when I was the manager of Stoffel Van Dorn, who was his teammate. I was able to see firsthand the work he can do on a day-to-day basis. As a driver, his ability, his great determination. Alonso is a champion. You don't win 2 F1 world titles if you don't have certain characteristics. It's a pleasure for me to see him do so well with Aston Martin." Truth be told, he then continued to praise Carlos Sainz and said that the Spaniard is definitely the best driver right now on the grid and would become available for signing anytime soon. But that in of itself is not enough for the smooth operator to count on the German team's support. After all, Audi did announce that if they were to enter the sport under their own preferred circumstances, they would want an all-German lineup. And while the legendary duo of Mick Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel is definitely something that will bring tears to the eyes of F1 fans, there is little to no chance that this scenario will see the daylight. Right now, Sainz has a very difficult mission ahead of himself. Prove that Ferrari are betting on the wrong driver to be the alpha male and the leader of the team. While that seems like mission impossible for the Spaniard driver, we must never forget the fact that in their first joint season as teammates, it was Sainz who prevailed over Leclerc. Sainz has also spoken about how he had to change his driving style in order to adapt to the circumstances that the new Ferrari car has posed to him. But even with such great sacrifices from his side, it just doesn't seem to be working between him and the Maranello squad. The pre-contract with Audi that Sainz has reportedly signed has been debunked, and Sainz's agent has reportedly said that plan A, B and C for his client is to renew his contract with Ferrari. This shows a lot of potential that maybe, just maybe, Ferrari would give both of its drivers one more chance to fight it out on equal terms. But right now, the cards with which Sainz was dealt are not looking extremely good. And even if a pre-contract was signed, it doesn't necessarily mean that Sainz has already committed to Audi, as we all know that Ferrari is a team that loves signing these with young potential drivers, just in case some of their superstar drivers decide to suddenly leave for another team, which is the scenario that is happening between Sainz and the Maranello team right now. All in all, it's going to be a very interesting period ahead of us, and we mustn't forget that while he is one of the most experienced drivers available from next season on, if a contract from Ferrari doesn't come along, Sainz is definitely not the one with the highest potential, especially not if we take into consideration that his old teammate Norris has been dubbed the favourite for the Audi seat if there are any massive shakeups on the horizon. So, what do you think about Sainz's decision? If you put yourself in his shoes, would you choose Ferrari or an Audi? Let us know in the comments down below.